play is the one activity of childhood that takes up the most time, can take the most diverse forms, and is what most children are obsessed with doing. Adults may look at such diverse activities with fondness, but fail to see that during play, there is a lot of learning and activity going on. While young children play, whether it is an infant who babbles to her parents, or preschoolers engaging in a game of pretend play, children are practicing and perfecting what they already know how to do, learning new skills that are just beyond the range of what they can do, and most of all, they make learning fun, enjoyable, and thus memorable. To understand exactly how play is an educational activity as well as a pastime, one should examine the different forms that play can take. These forms of play tend to occur along a continuum of development, from the simplistic motor and vocal motions of infants to the complex rules and social interactions of cooperative pretend play in preschoolers. We will start with infants who are newborn to 1 year old. Babies begin life with only reflexive movements, which are involuntary at first, like grasping or sucking. As an infant begins to discover sensations and what kind of control they can have over their movements, they will, in time, start to manipulate objects and interact with people, leading to their first steps and first words. We will now move on to toddlers who are 1 year to 3 years old. Children at this stage begin to experiment with how objects feel and what they do by at least 1 year of age. Exploration of the environment and of people and objects becomes a priority of play. As a child's speech and vocabulary begins to grow, so does their mental conceptions of categorized items. Toddlers at this stage also begin to experiment with pretend play. Finally, we will move on to preschoolers who are 3 to 5 years old. Children at this point have learned enough social skills, motor activities, and concepts to engage in more complex pretend play and even tell simple stories. Memory also increases enough for children to recall events and remember roles. This is basic, however, so practice is needed. Children at this stage should also begin working on playing with their peers. Now, we will move on to social play development. Preschoolers entering into interactions with their peers for the first time can be intimidated and confused at first. So they start slowly, at first, with onlooker behavior. Here, children will watch their peers but do nothing else. Here, they are learning by observation. Then, they will usually engage in independent play, where they engage in their own activities and not interact with anyone else. As they feel a little more comfortable around their peers, they will begin to engage in side-by-side play, where they will pay close attention to each other and they will sit next to each other, but they will usually engage in their own play. Finally, they will then engage in independent social play, where they will engage in their own activities still, but they will talk to their peers, sometimes even about what they are doing. And then finally, they move on to cooperative play. Here, children work together to teach each other rules of a game or pretend play scenario. Let us now move on to multicultural aspects of play. Different cultures have different values. Thus, play activities will also differ across cultures. For example, in some cultures, certain activities are encouraged that may not be encouraged in others, such as teasing. While American culture discourages teasing, others may promote it with games. Also, in other cultures and countries where toys are not widely available, children can find ways to improvise with anything they can find. Children who are also given work duties early in life, such as herding animals or caring for younger siblings, may find a way to make their work more enjoyable through pretend play. We will now discuss the importance of play in atypical development. Observing a child's play can reveal the nature of a delay they have. For instance, a 1-year-old who has a visual impairment will not be as likely to reach for objects, pay attention to talking caregivers, or explore their surroundings. Play can also be used as a powerful tool to treat delays in a way that is fun and natural. For a child with visual impairments, for example, tactile stimulating toys and a specially modified environment can encourage a child to explore and play. Other examples of disorders and other impairments also include hearing impairments, visual impairments, which limit the stimuli that infants draw on to promote exploration. Without these, an infant will not receive the encouragement to explore or to babble, and will not move as much or understand as much if there is no intervention. There is also cerebral palsy or spina bifida, which cause motor delays and impairments in nerve function, which limit the kind of movements an infant can perform. If an infant's first voluntary movements are limited, subsequent learning will also be limited. Last but not least, there is autism spectrum disorder. While each case is different, many children who are on the spectrum usually won't play in a way that is considered typical. Repeated movements or stereotypical behaviors, such as a child continuously spinning the wheel of a truck toy, are play behaviors that can indicate the presence of this disorder. Such activities do not support learning or growth, and early intervention has to include proper play instruction. Anyone who works with children, whether they are parents or teachers, understands the value of play. Unfortunately, there are factors that limit play in a way that may be disturbing to some. These include legislation such as the No Child Left Behind Act, which mandates regular assessment that ensures schools are teaching math and literacy. Underperforming schools and teachers are in danger of demotion or loss of federal funds. So this forces teachers and schools to focus so much on meeting standards that recess and free choice time are replaced with more intensive math and reading instruction. This also leads to budget cuts in other areas such as physical education, science, and the arts. We will now move on to video games and television, another threat to play. Time spent in front of a screen playing games, surfing the internet, or watching television means there is less time spent socializing, exercising, and playing. Parents and teachers can encourage play, even in a society that seems to discourage it. Parents can carefully monitor the time their child takes in watching television or playing video games. No matter how old they are, screen time is not as detrimental if it is in moderation. Parents can also research local legislature on academic testing and find out what kind of curricula that their teachers are administering in school. Finally, parents can also join and play with their children and become important role models. Teachers can encourage their students to play by advocating for recess, after-school activity, free time, and defend education in science and the arts, and physical education as well. If, in the end, the local school board or council does cut funding and time for recess, after-school activities, and free time, there can be ways a teacher can sneak playful activities into the curriculum. One good article to help inspire teachers to make a playful curriculum is Judy Harris Helms' Got Standards. Don't give up on engaged learning. In summary, play may look unproductive to some, but is anything but unproductive. Play allows children to practice what they know, to try out new skills, and overcome new challenges. It also makes learning and trying new things fun and rewarding. Cultural differences in play do exist. Play can also be influenced by developmental delays, and can not only reveal delays, but also be used to address developmental delays as well. In recent times, unfortunately, well-meaning but poorly conceived legislature, budget cuts, and the appeal of television and video games have culminated into less time for recess, free time, and after-school activities. Parents and teachers can combat this by being educated advocates and creative educators that nurture lifelong and fun learning.